This is Dan Grimm, and you're listening to the Matt Balaker podcast.
Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Matt Balaker podcast. I'm particularly excited today because we have another amazing guest. This gentleman moved from the East Coast to my home city of San Diego. He's an entrepreneur, a Little League dad, the founder and CEO of Good Stuff Beverages, Dan Grimm. Thank you for joining us, Dan. How are you?
I'm great, Matt. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you letting me come on.
Hey, it's my pleasure. So I want to get to it, Dan. 6 or 7 years ago, you were a telecom consultant. Now you're the leader of a cannabis beverage company. What happened?
That's a great question. I'm always looking for a challenge. And, I've been in telecom for 7 years, building sales teams across the country. And I saw what was bubbling in the cannabis industry. It was 2015, and you start reading, it was like, this thing's going to go legal. And that's going to present a slew of business opportunities. And I remember being in a San Diego bar. It was a brewery. And there was a whiteboard, and it was all the cool philanthropic stuff they were doing. And I was like, you know what? I want to build my own team, and I want to be able to have an organization that'll give me the opportunity to give back. Right, which we do now with a group called Hero Grown, which we can kind of talk a little bit about later. And I've also been I'm always very aware of what is the net result of my actions, specifically my business. And when I was in telecom, I felt like, well, what are we really doing? We're really decreasing operating costs and helping rich people get richer. It was like I really wanted to create a product or service that helped just everyday people. And that's where cannabis seemed to really fit. So are you familiar with BizCon, the big BizCon conference in Vegas?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I attended it, I think, in 2017, but I was too cheap, or I should say the company that hired me, to actually get a full ticket. So I kind of snuck my way in. But don't tell. I had a lot of fun.
Awesome. So that was actually the start of my cannabis experience. I went in there 2015 and had no experience in the industry and just threw myself in. I did the crash course. I talked to every vendor on the expo floor. I went to all the networking events, just trying to get my arms around this thing, right? And I had three major takeaways, Matt. A, the business opportunity is going to be live. This is really going to go legal. This thing's happening. B, the feeling of activism in this industry really touched me, and I wanted to be a part of it. And the third thing was, nobody really cares about beverage. And that just seemed really odd to me because it's so ingrained in our culture. We want to imbibe, it's beverage. We drink socially, we drink culturally, we drink beer, we drink wine, we drink spirits. Eventually, people are going to want to drink their cannabis. So and when I think of business opportunities, in the classic business school framework, you either go low cost or differentiation. I've always been more of a differentiation guy. So from that point forward, I was hell bent on creating a cannabis infused beverage.
You're hell bent. So let me take a step back, Dan. Okay. You're good at routers and connectivity. You go to one, although it's a huge one, one conference. It's not like you didn't grow up living on a brewery, or you're not some botanist or chemist.
Sure.
Like, what the hell? I'm gonna make beverages. I mean, couldn't you have just joined CrossFit if you wanted to challenge? Like, why did you have to climb Mount Everest on your first attempt?
I love changing industries. I love learning, and the idea of just throwing myself in was really attractive. But you're right. I got into this and I said, okay, I don't know the first thing about beverage. Fortunately, I found a beverage consultant who happened to live in San Diego.
Yeah. How does one find a beverage consultant?
I think I think I was just Googling, and
Okay.
it just turns out that this guy was in San Diego, and now he's a great friend of mine and still a mentor for me. And really, the first major challenge that I was faced, beyond just all the challenges that come with beverage, we certainly bit off way more than we could chew. Was okay. Well, cannabis is an oil,
Yes.
and beverages are water, so that's a problem.
Yeah. So I'm no chemist, but how do oil and water tend to interact, Dan?
Really, really poorly.
Yeah. Unless you're making lava lamps and you want to tilt it over and see like the cool.
There you go. In the lava lamp world, it's great. In our world, it really sucked. So I literally there used to be a big event called Cannabis Cup. It was put on by High Times back in the 215 days. So I went to Cannabis Cup and I talked to every single vendor there and said, how do you make a cannabis beverage? How do you get the oil into the water? And by the end of the day, finally, someone says, you need to talk to Todd.
Oh,
that was the guy. Todd was the guy. Todd was the guy. So Todd was a guy making beverages. He taught me just enough to be dangerous. Then I hired a chemist. We combined the cannabis knowledge with the chemist emulsion knowledge, figured out how to get the oil into the water, which is no small feat, especially for cannabis, because it's a trickier oil than most oils. It's not just salad dressing.
It's not just salad dressing. So,
not just salad dressing.
So you got these people together. Did you just have this huge pile of cash behind you, and you're like, I want to hire a consultant. I want to go. Like, how were you able
that sounds great.
To finance? This pivoting of careers.
Yeah, certainly the classic case of underfunded bootstrapping entrepreneur. I took about 80K in commission and bonus money from being a successful sales director. And then how much do I have on those credit cards?
We're going to find out and push it to the limit.
Hey, US Bank, can you give me raise this up before you figure out that you should be raising it up?
and you weren't just on your own, right? You had a wife and family.
Yeah. I had a wife with a 2-year-old and a baby on the way. So say,
like, what the hell?
Certainly I got a lot of. So you threw away your. Because I was pulling close to 200, full health care, all that stuff.
Yeah. Your wife's like, now we got another baby, so let's have more variability in our income. That sounds fantastic.
Yes. The beauty of positive thinking, the beauty and the pitfalls of positive thought. I was determined to make it happen, and lo and behold, we're here.
So where does this fire in your belly come from? If you're determined to make it happen, a lot of people are afraid. Why'd you still go for it?
I think that if you don't have purpose in your existence and you don't have purpose in your business world, then what good is it? So I had done, I had said, 7 years, but I'd been in technology for over 20 years. I had been with that company for close to 5. I was ready for a new challenge. I believe in my own abilities, and I believe in my ability to figure things out. And I said, beverage, how complicated could it be? What I didn't understand was, because the first product we chose was kombucha.
Oh, sure.
And so we took a niche within a niche, which is probably the worst business decision I ever made. But we're still here.
It's also a fermented product that takes a long time to make.
But the toughest thing about the kombucha is it had to be refrigerated all the time, and we didn't appreciate what an incredible challenge that would be, especially working in the dispensary world. That some had fridges, some didn't, trying to refrigerate it throughout the supply chain. So it was quite the juggling act for the products that we picked.
So what happened with this kombucha prototype?
I mean, we ran with it. I
Oh,
mean, we
okay.
were, so it was the basis of our company for the first 3 years. So there was about 7 companies that came out and introduced cannabis infused kombucha to the market. We probably outsold them all combined. That just meant that we were big fish in an infinitesimally small pond, but we made a name for ourselves. It was kind of funny because in the cannabis world, we were the kombucha guys.
Okay.
And in the kombucha world, we were the weed guys,
Uh-huh.
right? And we decided to go out with a big 1920s flair. I learned early on that in the 20s, 50% of all medicine made in the United States of America had indica in it. And that blew my mind. I said, we just need to bring people back to the progressive times of the
Exactly.
20s.
Rewind
So
100 years ago when it was more progressive. I like that.
exactly. So we would, every time we were out in public, my partner and I, we would dress in full suits with red bow ties, and we would have big event. Anytime we were at events, we would hire gals to wear flapper dresses with pearls. So we just broke out. We marketed at a level that nobody was marketing at, and because of that, despite our bad decision in our product choice,
Uh-huh.
we won accounts, we won fans, and we created enough energy that, with a limited budget and really the wrong product, we created a name for ourselves and revenue.
So were you reading like Harvard Business School case studies on how to get products off the ground, and that's what inspired this flappers dressing 1920s thing, or was this something more creative for you, Dan?
Yeah, it really, once I realized this idea of the 20s being this progressive time, it just became part of our story.
Mhm.
And then how do we amplify that story? Well, let's really play the roles, let's have some fun with it. And it kind of manifested that way. And we did. We had a lot of fun with it. We had a lot of
Very,
fun
very
with it.
nice. If you can't have fun in this business, go back to telecom. I think that's what people say.
Exactly.
So I love the name Good Stuff Beverages. I mean, it sounds like this would have been taken. Like, how were you able to get that?
Well, when we were kombucha, we were actually Good Stuff Tonic.
Oh,
And I was at a restaurant in North Park called Urban Solace, an amazing restaurant. Every Sunday they had bluegrass brunch,
ooh,
and they had really great food, really great style, great service. And I remember opening up the menu once, and I'm looking at the menu, and it's telling the story of the restaurant. And the story was a man and woman, a couple that lived in the restaurant world. And when they opened this restaurant, they said, we're going to feed customers like we feed our children, which is all organic vegetables and meat out of the traditional meat system.
uh-huh.
And I said, they are making products with the good stuff.
Ah.
And that became, it's like, we're going to make products with the good stuff. So Good Stuff Beverage. Fortunately, there were no Good Stuff tonics or Good Stuff beverages in the state of California. We can't get any. We couldn't copyright federally anyway,
Right.
right? So when we were kombucha, we were Good Stuff tonics. When it became recreational, we moved to Good Stuff Beverage Company
Okay.
to make it a little bit more wide in scope, as we are now focused less on the kombucha medical side and more on playful happiness, which is really what the brand is all about. And you could see that in the characters and the branding. We've got the musicians, animals playing music, and that was all part of how do you visually create the idea of playful happiness? Well, music is a happy place for us. It's a happy place for lots of people. Let's make it about music. And then how are we going to have fun with it? Well, let's have these cool characters created, which are now our acid jazz band.
So music, cartoons, and cannabis. You just hit the trifecta of every high school stoner from the 90s. Pretty perfect, I must say. So you started this, in 2015 about, and I'd like to, for our audience to get some context. You launched this when it was still the Prop 215 era, and in California, there are two major like landmark kind of decisions or referendums really
Sure.
for the industry. It was, I think, 95, 96. There's Prop 215 that gives California essentially the medical marijuana. You have to have a doctor's recommendation, and then you go to a dispensary and you get your medicine. Fast forward to, I think it was 2018, there's Prop 64, which for our intents and purposes moved from medical to adult use. And I don't want to say rec because I know that's controversial. It's an adult use now era, but it's way more complicated than that. And I've kind of been on the periphery helping some companies, but you are in the weeds. So I would love to get your perspective. What were the big changes from 215 to 64?
How long is this podcast?
98 hours. But do it succinctly and perfectly in under 14 seconds, please.
California is a unique market across the country for cannabis because we had 20 years of building this infrastructure, and the legislators in their wisdom in 96 said, okay, you're sick, you have AIDS, because this is really in response to the AIDS crisis, because they realized how good cannabis was for AIDS. And they said, okay, you've got AIDS, you could grow your own weed. Oh, that's not working, because just because you have AIDS doesn't mean you know how to grow weed. So let's create a collective. And if one patient subscribes to the collective, we can grow 6 plants as a collective. If 2 patients subscribe to the collective, we can grow 6 plus 6, we could grow 12 plants. And that's how it all bore out. And then we built this infrastructure. And then in 2018, obviously that changed with the adult use, and created a strong regulated environment. And that was that's a real game-changing event, right? Mainly the testing, which is fantastic, although not completely well thought out, because the equipment that is needed to do the testing isn't as sensitive as the tests that they're demanding, which cause all sorts of problems. So the testing, the licensing, making sure it was in a licensed manufacturing space, making sure that each different part of the business got its own license, which is really different than any state across the country. If you look at, say, Florida, you get a license, cultivation, manufacturing, distribution. Here, there's a license for each individual unit, right? So there was a lot of changes. There was a lot of shakeout. Probably the biggest thing was the classic idea of the cannabis business owner started to shift. It went away from the stoner who grew up in cannabis and loved cannabis and made it his business. The suits started to slowly but surely make their way in, because now that there was a legal, regulated environment.
Like the more Armanis that walked through the door.
Right.
That's how it works.
Much cooler. I
figured.
Yes. The biggest change that I miss is the feeling that I got in 2015, the activism.
Yeah.
It's there, but it's being slowly replaced by, there could be a big pot of gold here.
Yeah.
So, and the second biggest misgiving that I have is we couldn't continue with the Kombucha, which, was really a merciful ending because it wasn't the right product at the right time. But, if you go to Vons and you pull 10 kombuchas off the shelves and you test them for alcohol, 9 or 10 of them will fail.
Right.
But testing, we have the most regulated market in the world. It's so every single batch of our product is tested, which is great for the consumer, except it also leads to really inflated pricing, between the taxes and the extensive investment we've had to make all across the supply chain.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Dan, because California is in a very kind of unusual dynamic right now where you have even though it's far from perfect, there's several dispensaries, there's lots of municipalities where you can go in and buy legal product, but it's still greatly outweighed by the illegal market that doesn't have to pay I'm using broad numbers, but there's approximately 40% tax if you go in to buy. If you're buying from a street dealer, that's zeroed out.
Right.
They're not worrying about that. And also, because it's so pervasive, cops aren't really going to go and force someone for just possession. So, I mean, it's kind of this, like, if you're an illegal operator, it's sort of perfect. So why go legal, I guess?
Yeah, you got it.
Like, why are you above board, Dan?
Right. So for your customers, to give them some perspective, in 2020, the California market was a $12 billion industry. $3 billion of it was the legal market.
Wow.
$9 billion of
high.
it. Yes. 75% of the business still goes to. But the beauty of that is when you look at these graphs, I was like, how can cannabis sustain all this amazing growth? 25, 30% CAGR year over year. It's because, as opposed to most products, services, you're not creating demand. The demand is already there. You're just taking it from the illegal market. But to your point, it's a challenging decision for the consumer, because the consumer goes to dispensary A. He's been going to dispensary A all his life. All of a sudden, dispensary A goes to adult use legal, right? That eighth of cannabis he was acquiring for $30 is now $50.
Yeah.
Or what he was paying $50 is now $80.
Right.
So he says, you know what? This guy, Johnny, he used to drive it to my house.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to sell it to me for $25. Or I'm going to go to an illegal shop. They don't pay taxes. And the people creating their products, we incur an incredible amount of expense in the manufacturing, in the facilities, in the testing, and all this is good for the consumer, but you add that also to the taxation, and all of it just turns into a much higher price point. So consumers have choices, and it makes it a difficult road to hoe. But at the end of the day, the best products, the best technology, the safest products, they're all in the dispensary, right? In the adult use legal shops. And it's the future, but the state of California hasn't made it necessarily easy on us, because they're insistent on getting their chunk of flesh in a large way.
Yeah, the greed is kind of working to their detriment, because I think with lower taxes, they'd actually have a much bigger piece of the legal pie, and they'd actually get more tax money.
Right.
But I don't have
Volume.
your charisma, your pull, your influence in the world. And
don't cut yourself short, Matt.
Well, maybe
all of it in spades.
If you were able to say get Gavin Newsom, or you could just have a wand, and you could have one or two policy changes that you didn't have to go through like the voting or proposition or anything like that, and tomorrow these changes would be implemented, what would you want to see happen in the California market?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a volume game, right? If we're going to compete with the illicit market, we could be over their number, but we need to be in the ballpark. So if they lowered the taxes, the volume would make up for it a millionfold. This is a very elastic market. Mm-hmm. And I think that they should test what it would look like to lower the taxes, see the revenue that would be gained. And I think that test would, because we've done similar tests, it's a very elastic market, and it's the reduction of the taxation that we really need to be able to compete.
All right, do you hear that, Mr. Newsom? It's the reduction of the taxation that we need to compete. There's also a famous graph by the economist Arthur Laffer that kind of demonstrates what you're saying. You do it a lot better, but it's worth reviewing. So I would go along with your suggestion, Dan. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the product, because you went from kombucha drink to a lemonade, biscuit. Can you tell us more about your three kind of flagship products right now?
Sure. So, when regulation hit, we realized that we couldn't do kombucha. So we decided, let's take the idea of kombucha, which is a wellness drink, and apply that to something that's more mainstream in lemonades. So we took the classic lemonade and decided to make it as natural as possible. So we use real honey, we use real fruit, we use real lemon juice. And
Oh,
not
that's way
only,
cheaper, right? Than
oh
artificial.
yeah, in my dreams. It's also much easier to manufacture
Oh yeah.
and much easier to pass testing. None of that is
Always shelf stable, no variability.
So the challenge with cannabis beverages from a flavor perspective is they tend to taste chemically,
Yeah.
or they tend to taste weedy. And we're able to avoid those challenges and create a full, richly flavored beverage by using real natural ingredients. Now, why doesn't everybody just do that? Well, because it's expensive, it's hard to manufacture, and maybe the biggest reason is it's almost impossible to pass the testing with natural ingredients, because natural ingredients in THC, they they can get kind of janky. So we lost a year of profit figuring out exactly how to formulate our product. But now the advantage is we have a completely stable, homogeneous, natural ingredient product that tastes better than the market, right? Because we get to use all those natural ingredients.
So yeah, you must just hate easy. I think that you're a weirdly regulated market. You pick beverage, which is kind of a newer form factor for cannabis, and then within that you want to go the organic route, or just more natural product. And my hat's off to you, because you did it. And it's not just me saying that. The market has responded. I've heard from third parties, even before I met you, how it's flying off the shelf. What do you think it is that made consumers love your product so much?
Well, I think you're a good spokesman for us, Matt.
Please hire me.
We were really focused on how do we create something that tastes better, that feels better, and that looks different. And it tastes better because of the natural ingredients. It feels better because the challenge that people have with beverages and edibles from an effect standpoint is it's generally just distillate based. And for your listeners, distillate just means they're taking the flower and they're distilling out straight THC. And when you use distillate, it creates, some people love that experience, and some people feel like it's a one note racy kind of high. So what we do is we infuse botanical terpenes. And if you're familiar with the terms sativa, which are generally creating an energetic feeling, euphoria, or indica, which creates a more relaxation type experience. It's terpenes, which are aromatic oils you find in the cannabis plant and you find all throughout nature. So what makes our products unique from an effect standpoint is we have created proprietary bouquets of terpenes, and we're infusing that into our beverage. So it tastes better because of the natural ingredients, and then the terpenes take what would be a one note racy experience and creates a more well-rounded full orchestra type experience, because we're infusing the terpenes and creating energetic and calming effects.
Bouquets and full orchestra. You are so poetic.
I'm waxing today. You got me on a good day.
It's a weekend. We're approaching that. Well, and you achieved it. It's kind of like if you're taking a shot of rubbing alcohol versus having, trying to think, so some Pinot Noir in the Russian River Valley that has like notes of this or
That's
that.
right.
Like you have the full kind of entourage effect in
That's
a beverage.
Right. That's right.
Which is it's awesome, and it's not just me saying that. People are buying it but it's not always easy to find. So where can folks who want to spend their hard-earned money legally, where can they get your product?
Well, the best way is probably to go to goodstuffbeverageco.com, and you can see what dispensaries are near you. Here in the San Diego area, March and Ash, Urban Leaf, all of their chain stores will carry us. Up in the north, Elemental Wellness, Patient Care First up in Modesto. You really need to get onto the website. These are some of the bigger names of the shops we work with, but Good Stuff Beverage Co.com will lead you to be able to try our series of finely crafted, richly flavored, natural ingredient honey lemonades for those that want an energetic experience or a calming experience, or even a 100. We have a black cherry 100 milligram CBD to go with the THC.
Nice. So what advice or recommendations do you have for the Canna Curious, the people out there who are maybe used to having wine or beer or cocktails after work, and they think, oh, I don't like the calories, or I'm tired of being hungover, but they're not the kids who grew up getting stoned at lunchtime or something. How should they dip their toe in?
Great question.
In your opinion.
So our product, and it doesn't have to be our product, but our product,
it should be.
Example,
it really should be.
Thank you, man.
Get others to compare, but yeah.
If you bought our product, you could fill up a cap full.
Okay.
And you could put it in a seltzer water, a juice. You could create your own cocktail. And we have recipes that you could do this at home. This is what a lot of people will do. They'll take a little capful, they'll put it in some water or whatever mocktail they want to create, and you have a 2 milligram drink. And 2 milligrams is a very low dosage. So for the Canna Curious, they can just take a capful, put it into a mocktail, put it into whatever they're drinking, and get a very mellow experience. And then from there, they can, because I could tell you, I can't tell you how many people say, this has saved my life, because the alcohol consumption, I mean, I've replaced my alcohol with the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to get the release that at some point we all need, but in a much healthier fashion, both in terms of protecting your next day productivity and how you feel the next day, and just how your body really responds to it. Because cannabis is medicine. It is medicine, and it's far more medicinal than the alcohol. I love to have a drink, but me personally, I still drink. Mm-hmm. But my drinking has dropped by probably like 80-90% since I started the Good Stuff, because I have replaced most of that beverage consumption with the Good Stuff, and I feel fantastic.
Well, you look great. Your liver probably thanks you.
Every day.
You're able to go to your kids' baseball games on the weekends, and I know that's not easy, especially with the schedule. So we'll be wrapping up soon, but I want to get your opinion on, what are you looking forward to? What excites you the most about what you're doing in this industry?
What excites me the most is continuing to create cutting edge beverages. We are the first company to create a full-sized indica sativa terpene infused product. We have formulations that use live resin, which is another form of engaging the entourage effect to create the most amazing experiences through cannabis. So edibles and beverages create a platform for creating cutting edge effects. And the sativa energy and indica calm products that we have on the market today are just the beginning of the types of innovation that you will see from Good Stuff, as we are in touch with all of the people that are doing that cutting edge science and are very aggressive about putting it out onto the market for people to experience. So I think the winners in the edible drinkable space are looking at, how do we create the best experience? And the more the science evolves, the more tools we have to provide that for our consumers.
I love it. All right. So the company is the Good Stuff Beverage. The Brains behind it is Dan Grimm. You are the American Dream. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your time.